It's not working.
What's not working?
The next batch of scripts isn't coming along well. I'm not finding time for things with our schedule, and I'm afraid our content's going to suffer because of it.
We should leave that for the body to deal with. But it is pretty daunting, and in all my experience, nothing feels quite as bad as slamming your head against a wall without seeing any cracks. I think we just need to relax for a little bit, play a game to enjoy it instead of to make a point.
But then we're wasting time.
Life's about the roses you smell along the way. As I've gotten older, I've stopped having as much fun in the day-to-day. Not to say everything from school was sunshine and rainbows, but there's a notable overcast that just kind of looms overhead. It could rain at any second, just as easily as those skies could part for sunshine, and I don't have any control of it, but I can enjoy myself. I'm the type that likes to build things up and watch them work. A hammer that's constantly on the hunt for nails, and a game that can give me a nice dopamine drip of that sort of satisfaction has a nice home in my library. I'm in the mood to fight my way through the front door, set up a strong foundation, build on it until there's nothing left to grow, and laugh at the hordes of shit asses who think I can overcome it. I'm Moo. Oh, right. And this is Orcs Must Die.
Ugh. Where'd he run off to? Whatever. Orcs? Orcs. Orcs Must Die is a level-based wave defense shooter, and the rules are simple. Enemies will be coming from designated spawns to try to get in your rift. If an enemy gets in, you lose a rift point, and if you run out of rift points, you lose. Enemies come in all shapes and sizes, with different vulnerabilities, immunities, and styles of traps that they happen to be susceptible to. And ultimately, that means this is a game of experimentation. You've got to feel out all your tools somehow, and as you do, it's natural that you'll find some duds, run into some surprises, and sculpt out an arsenal that best fits your style of play.
But the most important trap is barricades, without a doubt.
With traps costing coins and the orcs attacking in a flood, the ability to block off pathways and bottleneck the hordes comes in handy for efficiency and economy alike.
Thankfully, they're kind enough to follow any path we draw for them so long as it's possible for them to take it. The game plan's simple. Force the hordes to clump up and walk through the kill box, and make that kill box better and better as waves go on.
And ideally, we make those boxes self-sufficient, so we can coast through the waves safely.
Ideally, we double down on trap density for those sweet, sweet point multipliers.
We can worry about points later. At the start, it's not about earning the most points you can, it's about making it to the end at all.
Oh please, don't be so harrowing. Look at these goobers. The small ones don't even come up to my knees, and the medium-sized ones can't stomach a headshot, much less a torrent of fire. Oh, but those can.
Ogres, and enemies like them, are big and have tons of health. Where most orcs would go down after being hit by a trap or two, ogres can take a lot more punishment, and more pressingly, trip more traps before they finally go down. If the CC and damage can't keep up, big enemies can pave the way for a lot of weaker enemies to break through the line of defense.
And wrangling a dozen or so of these tusk-mouthed knee smackers without any trap support can range from a minor inconvenience to a major pain in the neck. Especially when that path is being paved for other larger enemies.
So we have to keep them held back as well as we can. That means checking for elemental weaknesses before the waves start coming, and bringing a broad assortment of traps to help with different enemy types and angles of approach.
All that means is we need a bit of backup and to crank up the kill box's TSU.
The fuck's a TSU?
That's traps per square unit. You can think about the traps and enemies as being on a grid, and each grid square has a certain not quite quantifiable potential for lethality that goes up the more traps can affect that square.
That was a lot of big words for you. Are you okay?
A single tile with an arrow trap next to it is a TSU of 1, but if we move the arrow wall long ways and put down some tar, the TSU goes up to 2 for those spaces, and the rest of the grid squares in line with the arrows becomes TSU 1.
I mean, that makes sense, even though you're making it up.
The higher the number, the more of a pain in the neck it's going to be for orcs to get through, and an assortment of placement types is just as, if not more important than getting the elements right. If we take the right wall, floor, and ceiling traps, we can easily crank the TSU up from 2 to 7 or 8 all the way through the gauntlet.
And what were you saying about backup? You can't be serious.
They take up a quarter of the space the average trap does, have incredible range, penetrate, and can kill orcs and otherwise in an astounding 360 degrees.
They're 750 coin, and their per unit kill power is abysmal. It takes too long for them to be worth anything meaningful.
I don't like them because they're good on their own. I like them because they're the only trap in the game with an infinite damage ceiling.
Yeah, and that's a lot of resources to dump in, and if they target enemies that are already being blasted, it's resources wasted.
It's not wasted so long as we get that perfect.
The win is more important than the perfect is.
Then crank the difficulty down to apprentice.
You know I can't do that. I'm happy to do well, but we shouldn't strain ourselves.
I can assure you, we are not straining ourselves. Even with the heavy orcs, gnolls, and regenerating trolls, we're doing just fine. Kobolds. And sappers.
Just as there are big and strong enemies, there are enemies that are fast and weak. Both are pesky in their own ways, but all we have to do is browse our spellbook for a solution, the best of which is without a doubt Brimstone.
I'm not using Brimstone.
Why not? It works. It's a trap designed to deal with kobolds and other runners, so why aren't we using it to deal with kobolds and runners?
Because beyond that, Brimstone is useless.
We won't be using it for anything but that.
Then I think it's a wasted slot. We can only go into a mission with so many different traps, and we can only invest so many skulls in making those traps better. Brimstone is safe and effective, but it doesn't get us more points, it doesn't make the kill box any better.
Oh, and the auto ballistas do?
You shut your mouth.
Both of you, stop it, this isn't helping.
I don't care how many times we have to restart, it's worthwhile if we're having fun and learning new things on our way to do the best we can.
No, we need to keep it simple and tight. Every level is just a puzzle to crack, and there's no need to settle for perfect when fine gets us a win all the same.
We need to choke up on these 2 lanes and wring them out as soon as the orcs spawn.
We need to use our starting funds on fortifications and hold out with our weapons while we make a kill box where the lanes converge.
We can't deal with mountain trolls if we also let little enemies through.
Well, these last minute panic traps aren't dealing with anything. Which means we have to adjust. Serpentine the barricades, leave wall boys and freeze traps for status and combo, put ceiling lasers on large strips of path, wall chargers for big boys who power through to the end, and litter the floor with spikes. They're not strong on their own, but they
make up for it in volume, yeah, I get it.
And to catch the stragglers that slip by without slowing traps, we can set up a safety net of a ballista or 2.
We're going to set the ballistas up here so they can pick off stragglers and participate in the kill box. This is not the best we could do. If the spikes and ballistas were set to do arcane damage, we'd rack up a lot more points, and it's not the safest solution. If it were, we'd be using a lot more tar and CC, but we still got a perfect score. Yeah, but we could have scored better.
We could have just settled for losing a few rift points the first or second time.
That's a great idea and all, but I'm not making any progress until the 2 of you get back on the same side. Figure something out. Hey! We can't do that, can we?
We just did.
And where are you going?
You and I aren't going to reconcile on our own. We need some time to express ourselves without the other around, and I'll see you after we do.
No! Hey! Let me out of here!
Damn it.
I don't get it. I'm just trying to get the most bang for my buck. If I don't do it perfectly, I'm just going to find myself shooting for perfect later down the line. I'll be redoing the same levels over and over again instead of just getting perfect on the first time and wiping my hands of it. Ow!
Who put this here?
No, you don't.
Jeez, I guess when it comes down to it, a kill box only helps when the enemies go through it. Boss enemies like Mongrefell always have some bullshit you have to put up with, and a tanky kobold that can hop barriers really isn't a good matchup for a low damage proc weapon. I should have brought the crossbow, or loaded up the path to barricades with more hard damage traps. I came all this way, 20 minutes into the mission, and now I have to do it all over again.
Greg!
Alright, who needs new when I've got a friend like you? My pragmatic efficiency and your batshit insanity are the perfect combo, and with double the traps, we can dish out double the pain, regardless of our income being sliced.
That's completely missing all of them, but it's fun to watch.
Well, maybe double the pain is a bit generous, but ooh baby, a perfect's a perfect. An extra body gives us a lot of room to spice up the traps and tools we bring. The courtyard is a nightmare without a bottleneck, and if one of us loads up to handle big enemies, the other can take the wind belt and just huck the little guys straight into the big grinders on the wall.
Ugh. Okay, we gotta restart.
Do we? Or do we just roll this out and get something that kinda works? And then try to perfect it?
You know what? Sure, this level's a pain in the neck anyways. There's no world where we get it right in the first try. I still think one person on CC and the other killing, and we can set the kill box up as a strip along one of the side walls. Should probably invest in some kill traps instead of just barricades. And maybe an actual weapon. Where ballistas won't fit, archers will do. We make the most of the wall and floor space we have and set up an arcane dragon on the longest path we can. The tar and ice traps give actual damaging traps more time to cool down, and this time I have an actual weapon. Hey, that's progress, and one less level we need to go back for.
Damn it.
Okay, restarting.
So...
No, we're not restarting on that.
But we're still not out of the woods yet. 2 paths have to converge here, and the other path needs all the love it can get. This mission's much more straightforward than the last one is, and if we hold out for the first 2 waves and dig our feet in, it's no sweat.
Ooh, new high score.
I probably should have just said restart while the map's fresh in our minds. Nah, Dragon Boneyard's next, so I don't mind.
This is our kill box.
Oh, shit.
Leave it to Orcs Must Die players to be excited about walls and a ceiling.
These war scenarios really let players make their traps sing. Super high gold income, absurd enemy counts, and more trap space than a war mage could want.
This spot has walls, ceilings, floor space, a nice long path around its edge, and a pit of lava just waiting to eat up any orcs we throw in. I already have a kill box plotted out, which leaves Greg to deal with everything leading up to it.
Look, tell me that's not brilliant.
It's brilliant. Yeah, talk about a killer combination. The briar patch slows everything down and chips away at runners, while the spike walls bat away big globs of orcs that start to pile up as the waves go on. We use the rip saws and DOT traps to grind them down, and oh no.
God damn it.
Just yeah, let's Not cashing out the most skulls we can still sucks, don't get me wrong, but I think surviving a map like the basement at all is a reward in its own right. It's weird cases like this that force us to make use of weird kill boxes and weird traps that let us flex our muscles. My expertise and Greg's innovation. We're probably never actually going to get a perfect on this level, but we can run circles around the final gauntlet. Snake at the kill box so it can eat 3 big lanes at once, and lean into the ice traps while keeping them nice and diverse. Greg can keep the left side at bay for sure, and while we won't stick with all of his ideas... Does the ripsaw trigger the boom barrels?
Yes.
I'm not ashamed to take notes from time to time. Oh, the briar pit. At the end of the day, we're here to overcome a challenge and grind up orc meat the only way we know how. You know, it really is a shame that he doesn't actually do the boss thing, he just dies.
Good Jesus? He just makes a bunch of portals and then dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame. We should have fought him.
I guess even Greg can get annoyed by being left out to dry. Is there a worse feeling than having a better challenge dangled in front of your eyes and watching it getting snatched away from you by something out of your control? I've made a terrible mistake.
Yeah, it bounces back. That's no good.
How are things going over here? What about him? He's the one you should be worrying about. He's done. He's done? Relax, it's not a race. Walk me through it. Sure. The formula for Orcs Must Die DLC is pretty tried and true. New maps, new weapons, and new enemies. My friend Lazy and I are doing the Cold as Ice DLC, which gives us access to tools like the Molten Gold and Flamethrower, while pitting us up against the much tankier Cyclopses and Cyclops Shamans who can put down pillars that turn off traps in a radius around them. A trick I found is to put down traps with long effective ranges like gravity pillars, and place them so high that the area of the pillar doesn't affect them. It also gives us some leeway in cases where a pillar gets put down in the mini kill box by the door, so we can get an angle on it while the enemies are being sucked into the air and drop them right back into the fray. Ultimately, most of the challenge comes from the first pass through, and seeing as I've already done these missions on my own, we're really just going through the motions. Lazy is an extra set of helping hands, and he has his own taste when it comes to traps, but a game plan develops a lot more smoothly when both sides are cooperating. A simple setup of barricades, freeze traps, and ceiling lasers should be able to hold the line, while our auto ballistas are set up in such a way that they'll shoot down any flyers that try and sneak past us. We let an enemy or two leak, but we pulled through and have good notes for next time. Oh yeah, piece of cake, we run that again.
Oh, easy, Jesus.
Yeah, piece of cake, we run that again. Those kobolds aren't getting us this time. Which might as well be now. Get out of here.
Easy.
Get out of here, you're done for. You never stood a chance. Not when the combined mental power of the two of us is put together. The DLC maps love their little challenges, like turning a 3-lane map forked on the rift into a 4-lane map by making the flyers split up. With one person, there's a lot to manage, especially with the totems, but with two, there's a better balance to be had. Even a massive map like the Climax looks a lot less daunting with experience and help. Because of all the extra trap slots we had, I considered making use of the massive grinder next to the rift, with haymakers and other physics traps. The plan would come together in time, and helping Lazy get a lay of the land would pay off in spades. Can't.
Oh, to my death.
that is a bottomless pit. But no matter how we prepare, this one's a bit too long and grueling for me not to just take the win once we get it, no matter how close we were to biting it. I wonder if Mood agree. Tipping the scales is a bit more my speed, though. The enemies it introduces all have a unique mechanic of only being able to take a certain amount of damage per hit, which means really high damage single traps aren't going to be as helpful as multi-hit traps. Or physics traps that push them into an instant kill.
See ya!
It also means we have to set up our traps more sparingly, because without those massive single hits, things like armored ogres are going to plow right through our defenses. If I'd seen the armored ogres coming, we could have set up some wall charges before any leaks, and with that little bit of prep time, our performance becomes perfect. Ugh, I guess that is my bad, isn't it? Yeah, I made a mistake. So, want me to start? I've got to curb the superiority. The only reason you can act like you do with as much confidence as you do is because I've set up a foundation. And now that we're branching out and new things are being laid down next to that foundation, I shouldn't get upset with you for staying at top pace. No, you're spot on. I need to stay in my lane. There are some things that the heart just needs to stay out of. And planning is one of those things? And experimentation is not. I think it's better to try again from the point of a slip-up incorrect, but you think it's best to see a failure through to the end and go back. And while I think it pays to take time to shape up something more optimal in the following runs, you'd prefer to stick to our guns and put our ingenuity to work. Neither of us is wrong. But we can't both be right. Then let's just meet in the middle. A plan's only worth something until we get kicked in the teeth. And in a case where we're tasting the bottom of a boot, I trust you to call us out more than myself. I don't want to taste boot, dude. I mean, I trust your plans to keep our mouth boot-free more than I do my odds of turning something around. Then it looks like we both have some expectations to meet. And a lot of orcs to help with the therapy.